Are you living in the now, or are you distracted by past and future? If not now, then never. Hello. Welcome to another episode of BigTalk. I'm your host here, Aben, and today we're going to be talking about the now, right? This place where heaven is found. Right? When I say heaven, I'm not talking about, this magical land of eagle-winged angels flying around. I'm talking about a place of peace, fulfillment, this sort of blissful state of consciousness, right? Right now in this present moment, right? The very millisecond that you're viewing this episode, not a week from now, not tomorrow, not yesterday, not next week, not next year, but right now. Take a second. Right now, you have no problems. Let that sink in. You have no problems, no worries, zero obstacles, right? Again, right now, not 30 seconds from now, not 10 minutes from now because you're pulling up in your work parking lot, you're about to go clock in, right? Not because you're about to go into your boss's office, you're about to get fired, right? And we're not talking about 20 minutes from now, we're talking about right now, this very second. You have no worries, no obstacles, no problems. And I know this may sound crazy, right? You may not be able to wrap your head around it, really make sense of it in terms of you understanding this whole concept. But that's usually the issue, right? That's usually the biggest obstacle in living and understanding the now, right? It's trying to comprehend the now with your mind. You are not your mind. You are and will always be. That's your true essence, right? A being. Your mind is separate from you, right? Your mind is not you. It's a tool for you, but it is separate from you. And before you can define who you are, you must first be. So first it starts with I am, right? I am, right? And then we get into more specific levels of quote-unquote consciousness, right? So first I am. That's my true essence. Then it's I am man, right? And I'm a man named Aben. I'm a man named Aben in Florida, etc., etc. And we can go down the rabbit hole. But it first starts with I am, right? Your most basic level of consciousness. To be anything, you must first be conscious of being. So when we're talking about now, and when we're talking about consciousness, and when we're talking about mind, I find that most often, the disconnect between finding the heaven, right, this blissful place we call the now, the disconnect lies with an identification with the mind, right? Mistaking the mind for yourself, right? Not understanding the separation there. You think that the mind is you, especially when we're talking about now, because the mind is not designed for now, right? It can't even compute now. It's always stuck. The mind is always stuck in past or future. That's it. And anything outside of that is death to the mind. And the mind is always constantly fearing its own destruction, right? That's why it places all these false identities and false values on things and circumstances and physicalities, right? Because the past gives you a history that you use to justify and create this false identity of yourself, right? That's what you get from the past more often than not, right? And the future is this mystical place of fulfillment, right? That promises salvation for your circumstances. It promises that things will get better, right? Because if the future is better, right, you get hope. You're hopeful for the future. And if the future is supposedly worse, be it that's what your mind's telling you. If your mind tells you that the future is better, you get hope. If your mind tells you the future is worse, you get anxious. Right? And this isn't something that I'm trying to get you to believe. I don't want you to believe what I'm saying. I want you to know what I'm saying. And you do know it. The evidence is there. So let's try a little experiment. Pause this episode for 10 to 20 seconds and just let thoughts hit you. Do not examine the thoughts. Do not think into the thoughts. Just listen to them passively. Go ahead. Done? Okay. I guarantee you that whatever thought came to you, right? Whatever thought crossed your head was either past defined or future defined. Why is this? The mind can't comprehend now. It can only exist in past or future. So how do you expect a person who's mind identified, right, draws who they are from their mind? How can you expect that person to live in the now, this place where heaven is found, right? How can you expect that person to live in the moment? They can't, right? He or she can't because they live every single second of their lives thinking about how crappy the past was, right? And how good the future is going to be. But the world doesn't exist there, right? The past and the future, I don't want to say that they're unreal, but they sort of don't exist because they're merely shadows of the now. It's sort of the same dynamic that you get with moonlight, right? The moon doesn't make its own light. That's sunlight. That's simply bouncing around in the atmosphere and reflecting off of the moon. But we call it moonlight. But in actuality, moonlight doesn't exist. It's a shadowed reflection of the sun. Same dynamic. So again, past and future are shadow reflections of the now. The now is the only thing that really, truly exists. Right? So there's a book called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And in this book, there's a student and then there's a teacher. And they're discussing this whole now dynamic, right? So the student comes up to the teacher and he says this. He says, it seems impossible to identify. It seems impossible to disidentify from the mind, right? We're all immersed in it. How do you teach a fish to fly? Right? And the teacher replies to the student. He says this. He goes, here is the key. End the delusion of time. Time and mind are inseparable. Remove time from the mind and it stops unless you choose to use it. To be identified with your mind is to be trapped in time. The compulsion to live almost exclusively through memory and anticipation. This creates an endless preoccupation with past and future and an unwillingness to honor and acknowledge the present moment and allow it to be. The compulsion arises because the past gives you an identity and the future holds the promise of salvation, of fulfillment in whatever form. Both are delusions. And the student replies to the teacher. The student says this. He goes, but without a sense of time, how would we function in this world? There would be no goals to strive toward anymore. I wouldn't even know who I am because my past makes me who I am today. I think time is something very precious, and we need to learn how to use it wisely rather than waste it. Right? And then here's the funny thing. The teacher replies to the student. The teacher says this. He says, time isn't precious at all because it's an illusion. What you perceive as precious is not time, but the one point that is out of time, the now. That is precious indeed. The more you are focused on time, past, and future, the more you miss the now, the most precious thing there is. Why is it the most important, precious thing? Firstly, because it's the only thing. It's all there is. The eternal present is the space within which your whole life unfolds, the one factor that remains constant. Life is now. There was never a time when your life was not now, nor there ever will be. Secondly, the now is the only point that can take you beyond the limited confines of the mind. It's your only point of access into the timeless and formless realm of being. Then the student says this. The student says, aren't past and future just as real? Sometimes even more real than the present? After all, the past determines who we are, as well as how we perceive and behave in the moment. And our future goals determine which actions we take in the present. Right? But the teacher replies to the student again. He says this. He says, you haven't yet grasped the essence of what I'm saying because you're trying to understand it mentally. The mind cannot understand this. Only you can. Have you ever experienced, done, thought, or felt anything outside of the now? Do you think you ever will? Is it possible for anything to happen or be outside the now? The answer is obvious. Nothing ever happened in the past. It happened in the now. Nothing will ever happen in the future. It will happen in the now. That's perfectly said, right? Because you see, your mind loves to label and judge things, right? Your mind loves to fit things into words or pictures, right? It plans and organizes and solves and appropriates. And these qualities can be very useful, right? The mind can be very useful, and it can be a great tool if you use it correctly. But the problem is that most people don't use their minds. Their minds use them, right? When it should be the other way around. And here's proof of this. Ask yourself, can you stop thinking on demand? Can you just turn off your thoughts? Do you have access to the on-off switch? No? Then you're a slave to your mind. But you don't have to be. You really don't have to be. Right? In fact, it's relatively simple to free yourself from your mind, right? And reverse this dynamic. All you have to do is be conscious of your attention. That's it. I'll say it again. All you have to do to free yourself from your mind, to find that on and off switch, all you have to do is be conscious of your attention. Now, I won't get too deep into this episode about quote-unquote consciousness, right? But know that, simply put, the world is an outpictured image of your inner consciousness, right? What you're conscious of is and will be unless you change your consciousness of it. What does that mean? That means however I feel inside about myself, my emotions about myself, how I feel about my life, how I feel and view and think, everything that goes on internally about life and about myself. The universe sort of takes that, the world takes that, and it creates a life that is centralized around that. So if I feel that the world is a crappy place, I will see a world that's a crappy place. If I feel the world's a good place, I will see a world that's a good place. It's just that simple. So what you're conscious of is and will be unless you change your consciousness of it. So when it comes to mind, again, being conscious of our attention, all you have to do to control the mind is take your attention away. Right? If a thought comes to you that you did not warrant, watch the thought. Right? Do not judge it. Right? Don't judge the thought when it comes. Don't forcefully resist the thought when it comes. Right? Allow it to be. Accept it for what it is. Allow the thought to be. Feel the emotion, experience the emotion, and then make a decision if you feel one's warranted. But you need to just watch the thought. No judging, no resisting. Because if you resist or judge the thought, that's just your mind doubling back. Right? That's just your mind circling back to judge its prior things it just said. It's like if I come to you and I go, those are nice shoes. Right? And then I walk behind you and I go, what did he mean by saying that? Does he like the shoes or does he hate the shoes? Right? That's your mind doubling back. So don't judge the thought. Don't resist the thought. Don't judge or resist the emotion. Allow it to be passively. Just watch it. Resistance free. Because when you allow the mind to be, right, as it is, resistance free, and view it from a distance, right, when you view those thoughts from a distance and allow them to be, you're now breaking the chains of mind identification, right? Because now you're creating separation from yourself and the mind. How can I watch myself, right? If I am, and I am watching something else, right? If I am watching mind, then I am and mind must be two different things, right? So as you watch your mind and as you watch your thoughts, you create separation between your identity and your mind, right? Therefore, you won't be mind identified. You'll be two separate things. You are two separate things, you just don't realize it. But you will start to realize and you'll start to create that space that you need. ultimately you'll notice that, no thought can really live in you when you practice this. No thought's gonna stick around that you don't warrant. Most of the times, when you get really good at it, you'll choose what thoughts come in your head and you'll be able to just hit the off switch. But when you start out, you got to work at it, right? You'll start getting better thoughts, throughout your days. And when bad thoughts come, they won't stay. They won't linger. They won't keep circling and doubling back in your head. When you get a negative thought, it'll instantly be wished out of your head. You'll think when you choose, or at least be able to quickly, like I said, dissolve a thought that you don't like. And this is all important because, again, remember that consciousness, the world is an out-pictured image of your own consciousness. Whatever you're conscious of will be in your reality. So when you're changing your thoughts and your emotions and how you feel about yourself, the world, your relationships, your social dynamic, right? When you change what's going on internally about those things, the external world will follow suit. But it all starts internally first. It's hard for a sad man to see happiness, to see beauty. It's very hard for him to see that. It's going to be very easy for him to find the negativity in a situation. It's going to be very hard for him to find the positive thing in a situation, right? So if I change who I am inside, if I change myself from, now I look at a situation from a positive standpoint and I think positive thoughts and I feel positively about the world in general, then no matter what situation arises, I'll view it differently. I'll view it better. And I'll, all around have a better outcome because of the positive way that I'm viewing the angle, right? But like I said, this all comes from a place of watching, right? Resistance-free watching, right? When you add attention, here's the secret. When you add attention, right? Judging, analyzing, exploring, all those things to your thoughts, you're giving fuel to the mind. And if you want to use your mind, solve a puzzle, build a building, whatever, right? Whatever professional role you're taking, go ahead and give attention to the mind. Judge, analyze, explore. You're giving attention to the mind, you've turned it on. But when you want to turn the mind off, right? You have to allow the thoughts to be. Do not judge, do not analyze, do not explore. Just watch separately, right? In a non-resistive way. By allowing it to be and just viewing it separate, you take attention away from the mind. You create separation between yourself and mind. You don't draw your identity from it. And this is the on and off switch that I'm talking about. This is what I call conscious attention. Practice all this, and you'll see the difference it makes. Right? You practice all this, and you'll see the difference it makes. You no longer have to be right in all conversations and know everything, right? No more anxiety about the future or worrying about temporary issues. You don't have to be afraid of what you want to do or who you're around because it doesn't fit in your personality. You become in tune, really, you just become in tune more with yourself in the most basic essence, right? You find out who I am. And you reconnect with I am. Your most basic level of consciousness, I am. You reconnect with that level. And you separate yourself from mind. You'll no longer be a slave to your mind. Right? All that's left for you to do is take action. The evidence is there. The evidence is there. You simply just need to take action. If this episode provided value to you, go ahead and like it and leave a review on whatever streaming platform you're listening to this on. Also, if you're interested in any of the books that I reference in this show or any of the other episodes, go ahead and head over to officialbigtalk.com/books. Again, that's officialbigtalk.com/books. This is Big Talk. Thank you for listening.